When my mother texted me 3 days before Christmas saying, "Don't bother coming home for Christmas. We have a real family now." I stared at my phone and smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile you'd expect. It was the smile of someone who had spent the last 8 years building something extraordinary from nothing. Someone who had just signed a $50 million acquisition deal for the sustainable energy company I'd built from my garage. And someone who was about to discover that the real family my mother was referring to would soon be knocking on my door begging for help. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply becoming so successful that the people who abandoned you suddenly realize what they lost. My name is Maya Thompson, and this is the story of how being rejected by my own family became the catalyst for building an empire they never saw coming. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The story really begins when I was 12 years old, standing in the driveway of our house in Maple Grove, Minnesota, watching my parents load suitcase after suitcase into our SUV for my younger brother Tyler's traveling baseball tournament. It was the third tournament that month, and like always, I was staying behind with Mrs. Henderson next door while my entire family traveled across 3 states to watch Tyler play. Tyler was everything my parents had ever dreamed of in a son. At 14, he was already being scouted by high school coaches, had perfect grades that seemed to come effortlessly, and possessed the kind of natural charisma that made adults light up when he walked into a room. He was tall for his age, athletically built, with the kind of confident smile that suggested he'd never doubted his place in the world for even a moment. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one. The one who spent weekends tinkering with broken electronics in the basement, who read science magazines instead of sports statistics, and who had somehow inherited my grandfather's passion for understanding how things worked rather than my parents' obsession with athletic achievement. While Tyler was throwing perfect spirals in the backyard, I was taking apart old radios to see if I could make them work better. My father, David Thompson, was a former college baseball player who had never quite made it to the professional level, but had channeled all his athletic dreams into Tyler's career. He worked as a regional sales manager for a sporting goods company, a job that seemed perfectly designed to support his vision of Tyler's future success. Every conversation at dinner revolved around Tyler's latest achievement, his improving batting average, or the college scouts who had started asking about him. My mother, Patricia Thompson, had been a high school cheerleader who still maintained the kind of enthusiasm and energy that made her the perfect baseball mom. She organized team fundraisers, managed Tyler's schedule with military precision, and had converted half of our garage into a shrine of Tyler's trophies, newspaper clippings, and tournament photos. Her entire identity had become wrapped up in being the mother of the most promising young athlete in our town. The contrast between how my parents treated Tyler and how they treated me wasn't subtle. Tyler's baseball equipment costs were never questioned. New gloves, premium bats, specialized training sessions, travel expenses for tournaments in different states. Meanwhile, when I asked for a $30 electronics kit for my birthday, my parents suggested I save my allowance money instead. Tyler's academic struggles were met with expensive tutoring and constant support, while my consistent A's in advanced science and mathematics courses were acknowledged with a brief "good job" before the conversation inevitably returned to Tyler's latest game statistics. The family dynamic became even more pronounced when my parents decided to adopt. I was 15 when they first mentioned the possibility, sitting around the dinner table on a Tuesday evening in October. Tyler had just finished describing his latest tournament victory, and the conversation had naturally shifted to discussions about his bright future and the kind of support he would need to achieve his goals. "We've been thinking about expanding our family," my mother announced with the kind of excitement usually reserved for Tyler's achievements. "There are so many children who need homes, and we feel like we have so much love to give." What she didn't say, but what became clear over the following months, was that they were specifically looking to adopt another athletically gifted child who could benefit from the kind of support and opportunities they were already providing. Tyler. The adoption process became another family project that consumed months of attention, paperwork, and emotional energy. But like everything else in our household, it was something that happened around me rather than including me. 8 months later, my parents brought home Jake Morrison, a 13-year-old boy whose previous foster families had struggled to handle his behavioral challenges, but who possessed remarkable natural talent in multiple sports. Jake had been in the foster system since he was 7, moving between families who couldn't manage his anger issues and tendency toward defiance. But on a basketball court or football field, he transformed into something extraordinary, the kind of raw athletic talent that college scouts dream about finding. My parents approached Jake's integration into our family with the same systematic dedication they had applied to Tyler's development. They enrolled him in anger management counseling to address his behavioral issues, hired private coaches to refine his athletic skills, and began building the kind of comprehensive support system that could channel his talent toward college scholarships and professional opportunities. The adoption of Jake fundamentally altered our family dynamics in ways that pushed me even further toward the periphery of my parents' attention and emotional investment. Now there were 2 athletically gifted sons who required constant support, coordination, and financial investment to achieve their potential. Tournament schedules, training sessions, equipment purchases, and college preparation activities consumed every weekend and most weeknights. Tyler and Jake developed a close relationship built around their shared athletic interests and their status as the focus of our parents' ambitions. They trained together, competed against each other in friendly contests, and formed the kind of brotherhood that my parents had always hoped would develop between Tyler and me, but never had. Their personalities complemented each other perfectly. Tyler's natural confidence balanced Jake's intensity, while Jake's determination pushed Tyler to work even harder to maintain his position as the family's primary athletic star. My role in the family became increasingly defined by what I wasn't rather than what I was. I wasn't athletic, I wasn't outgoing, I wasn't the kind of daughter who generated excitement and pride through achievements that the entire community could recognize and celebrate. My academic success in advanced placement courses, my growing expertise in electronics and computer programming, and my quiet leadership in the school's robotics club generated polite acknowledgement but never the kind of enthusiastic support that Tyler and Jake received for their athletic accomplishments. The financial investment in Tyler and Jake's development was substantial and seemingly endless. New equipment, specialized training, travel expenses for tournaments, summer camps, with college-level coaching, and eventually college preparation services that cost thousands of dollars annually. Meanwhile, when I expressed interest in attending a summer programming camp at the state university, my parents suggested I look into scholarships or part-time jobs to fund my own educational interests. The message was clear. The family's resources were allocated based on potential return on investment, and my parents had calculated that Tyler and Jake's athletic talents offered better prospects for future success than my academic and technical abilities. This wasn't necessarily malicious, but it reflected their fundamental belief that athletic achievement represented a more reliable path to success and recognition than the intellectual pursuits that genuinely interested me. During my junior year of high school, the family dynamics reached a tipping point when Tyler received his first serious college recruitment offers while Jake was being courted by elite high school programs that could provide better training and competition opportunities. The excitement and celebration around these developments created a household atmosphere where every conversation revolved around optimizing their opportunities and managing their increasingly complex schedules. I had quietly been developing my own expertise in renewable energy systems, building small-scale solar and wind power prototypes in our basement workshop that demonstrated innovative approaches to efficiency and cost reduction. My physics teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, had encouraged me to enter several science competitions, and I had begun receiving recognition from engineering organizations and universities, impressed by my project designs and technical understanding. When I received notification that I had been selected as a finalist for the National Young Inventors Competition, which included a full scholarship to MIT and $25,000 in project development funding, I was genuinely excited to share the news with my family. The competition represented validation of years of independent research and development work, and the MIT scholarship would provide access to the kind of advanced education that could transform my technical interests into professional opportunities. Announced my selection during dinner on a Wednesday evening in March, expecting the kind of celebration and recognition that typically accompanied Tyler and Jake's achievements. Instead, my parents offered brief congratulations before immediately shifting the conversation back to Tyler's upcoming tournament and Jake's potential transfer to a specialized athletic academy. The contrast in their reactions was stark and painful. Tyler's tournament victories generated family-wide celebrations, social media posts, and calls to extended family members who were expected to share in the excitement. My national recognition for technical innovation merited a 30-second acknowledgement, before being forgotten in favor of discussions about hotel reservations and travel arrangements for the brothers' upcoming competitions. That night, alone in my basement workshop surrounded by the solar panel prototypes and wind turbine designs that had earned national recognition, I realized that my relationship with my family was fundamentally different from what I had always hoped it could become. They weren't intentionally cruel or neglectful, but their emotional investment and support were clearly allocated based on priorities that didn't include my interests or achievements. The realization was both devastating and liberating. Devastating because it confirmed that I would never receive the kind of unconditional family support that Tyler and Jake took for granted. But liberating because it freed me from the expectation that I needed their approval or recognition to pursue my goals and develop my capabilities. From that point forward, I began approaching my education and personal development with the understanding that success would require complete self-reliance and independence from family support. The MIT scholarship would provide access to advanced education, but everything else, living expenses, project funding, professional development opportunities, would need to be earned through my own efforts and strategic planning. The remainder of my high school years were spent building the foundation for independence while maintaining polite but distant relationships with family members who remained focused on Tyler and Jake's continuing athletic development. I worked part-time jobs to save money for college expenses, continued developing renewable energy prototypes that could potentially become commercial ventures, and began building relationships with mentors and peers who shared my technical interests and professional ambitions. My parents' lack of interest in my achievements became a source of motivation rather than discouragement. Every project I completed independently, every recognition I received without their support, and every step I took toward building my own future reinforced my determination to succeed without requiring their validation or assistance. By the time I graduated from high school as valedictorian with early admission to MIT's engineering program, I had already begun the process of emotional separation from a family that had never really included me in their vision of success and achievement. The foundation was being laid for the complete independence that would define my adult relationship with people who had taught me that love and support were conditional upon meeting their specific definitions of worthiness and potential. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. MIT's campus in Cambridge felt like stepping into a different universe, where intelligence and innovation were celebrated rather than tolerated. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who understood the excitement of solving complex technical problems and who viewed renewable energy research as genuinely important work, rather than an odd hobby that distracted from more practical pursuits. The full scholarship covered tuition and basic housing, but everything else, meal plans, textbooks, lab fees, and living expenses, required income I would need to generate independently. Unlike most of my classmates whose families provided comprehensive financial support, I faced the reality of working 25 hours weekly while maintaining the academic performance necessary to keep my scholarship and pursue advanced research opportunities. My freshman dormitory assignment in Burton Connor House placed me with 3 roommates whose casual conversations about spring break trips to Europe, expensive electronics purchases, and family vacation homes highlighted economic realities vastly different from my own situation. They ordered pizza and Chinese takeout without considering cost, while I survived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, calculating whether purchasing required textbooks would compromise my ability to afford basic necessities. The financial constraints forced me to be incredibly strategic about every expense and opportunity. I secured a work-study position in the Renewable Energy Laboratory, which provided both income and invaluable hands-on experience with cutting-edge solar cell technology and energy storage systems. The job involved maintaining equipment, preparing materials for graduate student experiments, and assisting with data collection for research projects funded by major energy companies. Working in the lab introduced me to Professor Elena Vasquez, whose research focused on improving photovoltaic efficiency through novel semiconductor materials and cell design innovations. Professor Vasquez recognized my practical experience with solar systems and invited me to contribute to projects that were pushing the boundaries of commercial solar technology. These opportunities provided exposure to research methodologies and industry applications that would prove essential for my future entrepreneurial ventures. Academic coursework during freshman year exceeded my expectations for intellectual rigor and creative challenge. Advanced physics and engineering courses introduced concepts and analytical frameworks that built upon my high school foundation while opening entirely new areas of specialization. Mathematics courses provided the theoretical tools necessary for understanding complex energy systems, while chemistry classes revealed the molecular-level processes that determined renewable energy efficiency. The combination of academic demands, work obligations, and basic life maintenance required time, management skills that far exceeded anything I had developed during high school. Every hour needed to be planned and optimized to balance coursework, laboratory work, and the part-time tutoring I had started providing to supplement my income. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford during exam periods and project deadlines. Despite the constant pressure, I thrived in an environment that rewarded innovation and technical competence rather than athletic ability or social connections. My renewable energy prototypes, which had seemed quirky and impractical to my family, were recognized as genuinely innovative solutions to real engineering challenges. Professors encouraged me to refine my designs and consider their commercial potential, suggesting that my work could form the foundation for future patents and startup ventures. During my second semester, I developed an improved solar panel mounting system that increased energy capture efficiency by automatically adjusting panel orientation throughout the day while using minimal electrical power for the tracking mechanism. The design solved several engineering challenges that had limited the cost-effectiveness of solar tracking systems, making them viable for residential installations rather than just large commercial projects. The tracking system attracted attention from classmates and faculty members who recognized its potential commercial applications. Professor Vasquez encouraged me to document the design thoroughly and consider applying for provisional patents that could protect the intellectual property while I continued developing the technology. These conversations introduced me to the intersection between technical innovation and business development that would shape my future career direction. My relationship with my family during freshman year consisted primarily of brief phone calls every few weeks and occasional text message exchanges about my academic progress. My parents would ask general questions about my classes and living situation, but showed little interest in the specific research projects or technical achievements that occupied most of my time and attention. Their conversations remained focused on Tyler's continuing baseball success and Jake's development as a multi-sport athlete. Tyler had received a full athletic scholarship to the University of Minnesota, where he was already making impressive contributions to their baseball program, despite being a freshman. His statistics were generating attention from professional scouts, and my parents' conversations were filled with optimistic projections about his potential for being drafted after college. Jake had transferred to a prestigious sports academy in Florida that specialized in developing elite athletes across multiple sports, and early reports suggested he was exceeding even the most optimistic expectations for his development. The contrast between my parents' enthusiasm for Tyler and Jake's achievements and their polite but distant interest in my academic progress was stark and painful. When I mentioned receiving recognition for my solar tracking system design, they offered brief congratulations before immediately shifting the conversation to Tyler's latest batting statistics or Jake's upcoming tournament. My technical innovations were acknowledged, but never celebrated with the kind of excitement and pride that accompanied every athletic milestone. During spring break of freshman year, I chose to remain on campus rather than return home to Minnesota. The decision was partially financial. I couldn't afford travel expenses, but also emotional. I had no desire to spend a week surrounded by conversations about Tyler and Jake's athletic achievements while my own successes were treated as interesting, but ultimately less important than their sports careers. Instead, I used the break to work additional hours in the lab while making progress on improving my solar tracking system design. The spring break decision marked the beginning of my gradual emotional separation from a family that had never really understood or valued my interests and capabilities. Each conversation that focused exclusively on Tyler and Jake's achievements, while glossing over my academic and technical progress, reinforced my determination to build success independently, rather than seeking validation from people who had consistently demonstrated that they valued athletic accomplishment above intellectual achievement. By the end of freshman year, I had refined my solar tracking system to the point where Professor Vasquez suggested I consider entering it in MIT's annual entrepreneurship competition. The contest provided funding and mentorship for student ventures that demonstrated commercial potential, offering opportunities to develop technical innovations into actual business ventures. The competition would require developing a comprehensive business plan, conducting market research, and presenting to panels of industry experts and potential investors. Summer break presented a choice between returning home to Minnesota or remaining in Cambridge to work on developing my solar tracking system into a viable commercial product. The decision was influenced by my family's clear expectation that I would spend the summer working a conventional job to earn money for college expenses, while my own instincts suggested that investing time in developing my technology could create far greater long-term opportunities. I chose to stay in Cambridge, working full-time in Professor Vasquez's lab, while dedicating evenings and weekends to refining my tracking system design and developing the business plan required for the entrepreneurship competition. The decision required borrowing money for basic living expenses, but it provided uninterrupted access to laboratory equipment and faculty mentorship that would have been impossible to replicate at home. The summer research experience taught me about the difference between technical innovation and commercial viability. My solar tracking system worked effectively and offered genuine improvements over existing solutions, but developing it into a marketable product required understanding manufacturing costs, competitive positioning, customer needs, and distribution, channels that extended far beyond technical performance metrics. Market research revealed that residential solar installations were growing rapidly, but most systems used fixed mounting rather than tracking mechanisms due to cost and complexity concerns. My design addressed both issues by providing automatic tracking capabilities at costs comparable to fixed mounting systems, creating a potential market opportunity for homeowners who wanted to maximize their solar energy generation without significantly Increasing installation expenses. The business plan development process forced me to think systematically about every aspect of bringing a technical innovation to market: manufacturing partnerships, quality control systems, customer support infrastructure, marketing strategies, and financial projections required analytical frameworks that drew upon concepts from engineering, business, and economics that I needed to learn through independent research and faculty consultation. Professor Vasquez introduced me to industry contacts who provided insights about commercial solar markets, manufacturing processes, and regulatory requirements that affected product development timelines and market entry strategies. These conversations revealed the complexity of transitioning from prototype development to commercial production, but also confirmed that my tracking system addressed genuine market needs with solutions that offered meaningful competitive advantages. By late summer, I had completed a comprehensive business plan that demonstrated both technical feasibility and commercial potential for my solar tracking system. The plan included detailed financial projections, competitive analysis, and development timelines that showed how the technology could be brought to market within 18 months with appropriate funding and strategic partnerships. Entering MIT's entrepreneurship competition required presenting to multiple panels of judges, including faculty members, industry experts, and potential investors who evaluated both technical innovation and business viability. The competition attracted over 200 student teams from across the university, representing diverse technologies and market opportunities that ranged from software applications to biomedical devices. My presentation focused on the market opportunity for affordable solar tracking systems, the technical advantages of my design approach, and the financial projections that demonstrated potential for sustainable, profitable growth. The judges asked detailed questions about manufacturing scalability, competitive threats, and customer acquisition strategies that tested my understanding of business development challenges beyond pure technical implementation. The competition. Results exceeded my most optimistic expectations. My solar tracking system was selected as the winner in the clean energy category, earning $25,000 in development funding, along with access to mentorship programs and industry partnerships that could accelerate the transition from prototype to commercial product. The recognition validated years of independent technical development while providing resources that could transform my innovative designs into an actual business venture. More importantly, the competition's success demonstrated that my systematic approach to technical problem-solving and strategic planning could generate recognition and opportunities in environments that valued innovation and execution rather than athletic performance or family connections. The experience confirmed that success could be achieved through competence and persistence rather than external validation or support from people who had never understood my interests or capabilities. The entrepreneurship competition victory attracted attention from technology publications and industry organizations that documented my work as representative of emerging trends in renewable energy innovation. Articles in trade magazines highlighted my tracking system's technical advantages and commercial potential, while analyst reports identified my approach as exemplifying the kind of innovation that could accelerate residential solar adoption. Media. Coverage generated inquiries from potential customers, strategic partners, and investors interested in supporting the development of my tracking system into a commercial product. These opportunities provided validation of market demand while creating possibilities for funding and partnerships that could enable the transition from student project to actual business venture. As sophomore year began, I had established foundation for potential entrepreneurial success while maintaining the academic excellence necessary to continue receiving scholarship support and advancing toward my engineering degree. The solar tracking system had evolved from basement hobby project to recognized innovation with documented commercial potential and industry support for further development. The success achieved during freshman year demonstrated that technical competence and strategic planning could generate extraordinary opportunities for students willing to work independently and take calculated risks on innovative solutions to real market problems. Unlike Tyler and Jake's athletic achievements, which required ongoing family support and community recognition, my technical innovations created value through systematic effort and strategic decision-making that didn't depend on external validation or approval. The $25,000 from MIT's entrepreneurship competition transformed my solar tracking project from academic exercise into legitimate business development opportunity. However, managing this transition while maintaining academic excellence and earning enough income to support myself required strategic planning and execution skills that pushed my capabilities to their absolute limits. Sophomore year began with establishing SolarTrak Innovations as an official business entity, a process that required navigating corporate formation procedures, intellectual property protection, and regulatory compliance requirements that were completely foreign to my engineering background. Professor Vasquez connected me with MIT's entrepreneurship mentors, including several alumni who had successfully transitioned from student innovators to startup founders. My primary mentor, Dr. Rachel Kim, had founded 2 successful technology companies before returning to academia as an entrepreneur in residence. She possessed the rare combination of technical expertise and business acumen necessary to guide student ventures through the complex transition from prototype development to commercial viability. Dr. Kim's approach emphasized systematic validation of market assumptions, strategic partnership development, and capital allocation decisions that would determine long-term competitive positioning. Under Dr. Kim's guidance, I began conducting comprehensive market research that extended far beyond the preliminary analysis completed for the entrepreneurship competition. This research involved interviewing potential customers, analyzing competitor products and pricing strategies, and evaluating supply chain options that could support scalable manufacturing while maintaining quality standards and cost competitiveness. The customer interviews revealed insights that significantly influenced my product development strategy. Residential solar installers were interested in tracking systems that could increase energy generation without adding complexity to installation. Processes are requiring ongoing maintenance. They emphasize the importance of reliable operation, weather resistance, and compatibility with existing solar panel systems that dominated the residential market. Commercial solar developers expressed even stronger interest in tracking solutions that could improve return on investment for larger installations. Their requirements focused on maximizing energy output per unit area while minimizing operational complexity and maintenance costs. The commercial market offered potential for larger order volumes and higher profit margins, but required more sophisticated engineering and manufacturing capabilities. Manufacturing research revealed the complexity of transitioning from hand-built prototypes to mass-produced systems that could meet commercial quality and cost requirements. Component sourcing, assembly processes, quality control systems, and inventory management represented challenges that required expertise in areas completely outside my engineering background. Dr. Kim introduced me to manufacturing consultants who specialized in helping technology startups navigate these operational challenges. The manufacturing analysis indicated that achieving competitive cost structures would require production volumes exceeding 10,000 units annually, necessitating capital investments in tooling, inventory, and quality assurance systems that far exceeded my available resources. This discovery forced fundamental reconsideration of my business strategy, shifting focus toward licensing agreements and strategic partnerships rather than independent manufacturing and distribution. Patent protection became a critical priority, as the commercial potential of my tracking system attracted attention from established solar equipment manufacturers who possessed the resources to develop competing solutions quickly. The patent application process required detailed technical documentation and prior art analysis that consumed months of effort while providing essential protection for the intellectual property that represented my primary competitive advantage. Working with MIT's intellectual property attorneys, I filed provisional patents covering the mechanical design, control algorithms, and energy management systems that distinguished my tracking solution from existing alternatives. The patent documentation process forced me to articulate exactly what made my approach innovative and defensible. Insights that proved valuable for business development conversations with potential partners and investors. Academic coursework during sophomore year included advanced materials, science and power electronics courses that directly supported my tracking system development, while providing foundation knowledge for future renewable energy innovations. I maintained a perfect GPA despite increasing time commitments for business development activities, demonstrating time management and prioritization skills that impressed faculty advisors and potential business partners. The demanding schedule required eliminating almost all social activities and recreational pursuits in favor of academic excellence and business development progress. While classmates attended parties, joined clubs, and explored Boston's entertainment options, I spent evenings in the lab refining prototypes and weekends conducting customer interviews or developing partnership proposals. This intensive focus paid dividends when several major solar equipment manufacturers expressed interest in licensing my tracking technology for integration with their existing product lines. These discussions revealed the substantial value that established companies placed on innovative solutions that could differentiate their offerings in increasingly competitive markets. Licensing negotiations required understanding complex business arrangements involving royalty structures, development milestones, and exclusivity agreements that would determine my long-term financial returns while ensuring optimal market development for the technology. Dr. Kim provided guidance throughout these discussions, helping me evaluate proposals and negotiate terms that balanced immediate financial benefits with strategic positioning for future opportunities. The most promising licensing opportunity emerged from discussions with Meridian Solar Systems, a mid-sized manufacturer that specialized in residential installations and was seeking innovative technologies to compete against larger competitors with superior marketing resources and distribution networks. Meridian's management team recognized that my tracking system could provide the differentiation necessary to capture market share from established players. Meridian's licensing proposal included upfront payments, development milestone bonuses, and ongoing royalties that could generate substantial income streams while providing access to manufacturing capabilities and distribution channels that would have required years for me to develop independently. The agreement also included provisions for joint development of future innovations, creating potential for long-term partnership beyond the initial tracking system. However, finalizing the licensing agreement required extensive due diligence and legal documentation that stretched over several months while I continued developing enhanced versions of the tracking system based on feedback from Meridian's engineering team. The legal and business development processes provided intensive education in technology commercialization that would prove invaluable for future entrepreneurial ventures. During this period of accelerating business development, my relationship with my family continued following patterns established during freshman year. Occasional phone calls and text message exchanges maintained basic communication, but substantive discussions about my work remained limited to brief updates that generated polite interest before conversations shifted to Tyler and Jake's continuing athletic achievements. Tyler's sophomore year at the University of Minnesota had exceeded all expectations, with batting statistics that placed him among the top prospects in college baseball. Professional scouts were attending his games regularly, and preliminary discussions suggested he could be selected in early rounds of the Major League Baseball draft following his junior year. My parents' excitement about Tyler's professional prospects dominated every family conversation. Jake's development at the Florida Sports Academy continued generating remarkable results across multiple sports. His combination of natural athleticism and improved discipline had attracted attention from Division I college programs in both football and track and field. Coaches were projecting that he could qualify for athletic scholarships in either sport, though football appeared to offer better long-term professional opportunities. The family's investment in Tyler and Jake's athletic development had increased substantially as their success attracted higher levels of competition and training opportunities. Specialized coaching, advanced equipment, travel expenses for elite tournaments, and college preparation services were consuming significant portions of my parents' income and savings. But the potential returns justified these investments in their perspective. When I mentioned the Meridian licensing opportunity during a rare phone conversation with my mother, she offered brief congratulations before immediately transitioning to detailed discussion of Tyler's latest game statistics and upcoming tournament schedule. The contrast between her enthusiasm for Tyler's athletic achievements and her polite but disinterested response to my business development success was stark and painful. My father's reaction to news about my solar tracking innovations followed similar patterns. He would acknowledge my technical accomplishments but showed no genuine curiosity about the commercial applications or business implications of my work. His interests remained focused on Tyler's professional baseball prospects and Jake's college recruitment process, subjects that generated genuine excitement and detailed analysis during every conversation. The family dynamics became even more pronounced during holiday breaks when I would return home briefly to visit. These trips revealed how completely my parents' lives revolved around supporting Tyler and Jake's athletic careers, while my academic and business achievements remained peripheral to their daily concerns and future planning. Christmas break of sophomore year provided the most dramatic illustration of these shifted family priorities. The house had been redecorated to accommodate even more athletic memorabilia, including professionally framed newspaper articles about Tyler's college success and Jake's academy achievements. Meanwhile, my MIT acceptance letter and entrepreneurship competition victory certificate remained in a small photo album that was never displayed or discussed with visitors. Family dinner conversations during the Christmas visit focused exclusively on Tyler's upcoming junior season and Jake's college recruitment timeline. When relatives asked about my studies, my parents would provide brief, generic responses about my engineering program, before redirecting conversations toward detailed discussions of Tyler's professional prospects and Jake's athletic scholarships. The emotional distance that had developed between my parents and me became increasingly apparent through these interactions. They weren't intentionally cruel or dismissive, but their emotional investment and genuine enthusiasm were clearly allocated to Tyler and Jake's pursuits, rather than my academic and entrepreneurial achievements. Their love felt conditional upon meeting expectations that I had never been able to fulfill. New Year's Eve of sophomore year marked a turning point in my relationship with my family, when I made the conscious decision to stop seeking their validation or approval for my achievements. The solar tracking licensing deal with Meridian was approaching finalization, but I chose not to share this news with parents who had consistently demonstrated that business success was less important to them than athletic accomplishment. Instead, I focused entirely on maximizing the opportunities that MIT and my own efforts had created, while accepting that family support and recognition might never align with my actual interests and capabilities. This decision was both liberating and lonely, but it eliminated the recurring disappointment of seeking approval from people who valued different types of achievement. Junior year commenced with completing the Meridian licensing agreement and beginning development of next-generation tracking technologies that could maintain my competitive advantages in rapidly evolving solar markets. The licensing income provided financial security that eliminated my previous concerns about college expenses, while funding advanced research projects that could form the foundation for future innovations. The success of the Meridian partnership validated my approach to technology commercialization, while providing credibility that attracted attention from other companies interested in licensing agreements or strategic partnerships. Industry recognition began generating speaking opportunities at renewable energy conferences, where I could share insights about innovation and entrepreneurship with audiences that included potential customers, partners, and investors. More importantly, the business development experience had taught me systematic approaches to identifying market opportunities, developing technical solutions, and executing commercialization strategies that could be applied to future innovations. The foundation was established for building a comprehensive renewable energy company rather than licensing individual technologies to other manufacturers. Senior year at MIT began with opportunities that exceeded anything I had imagined when I First arrived as a scholarship student focused simply on surviving financially while earning my degree. The success of the Meridian licensing deal had generated industry recognition that attracted inquiries from major energy companies seeking innovative technologies to strengthen their competitive positioning in rapidly growing renewable energy markets. Thomson Renewable Solutions officially incorporated in September with initial capital of $150,000 generated through the Meridian licensing agreement and additional technology licenses to 2 other solar equipment manufacturers. Rather than simply licensing individual innovations, I had decided to build a comprehensive renewable energy company that could develop, patent, and commercialize multiple technologies while maintaining ownership of the intellectual property that represented my primary competitive advantage. The company's first major breakthrough came through developing an integrated energy management system that combined solar tracking, battery storage optimization, and smart grid connectivity into a unified platform that could maximize energy efficiency. For both residential and commercial installations, this system addressed multiple market needs simultaneously while creating defensive barriers against competitors who might try to replicate individual components. Dr. Kim continued serving as my primary business mentor while introducing me to venture capital firms that specialized in clean energy investments. These discussions revealed the substantial funding opportunities available for companies that could demonstrate scalable solutions to significant market problems. Several firms expressed preliminary interest in providing Series A funding that could accelerate product development and market expansion. The venture capital evaluation process required developing comprehensive business plans that demonstrated market size, competitive advantages, management capabilities, and financial projections for achieving profitable growth. This planning forced me to think systematically about scaling from individual inventor to CEO of a technology company that could employ dozens of engineers while serving thousands of customers. Market research conducted during this period revealed that the residential solar market was experiencing explosive growth driven by declining equipment costs, improved financing options, and supportive government policies. However, most installations still used basic fixed mounting systems that captured only 60–70% of available solar energy throughout the day. My tracking and optimization technologies could increase energy capture to over 90% while adding minimal cost and complexity. Commercial and utility-scale solar projects offered even greater opportunities for efficiency improvements that could translate into substantial financial returns for project developers. These larger installations could justify higher technology costs in exchange for increased energy generation that improved project economics and competitive positioning. My integrated energy management platform addressed multiple operational challenges while providing measurable performance improvements. Patent applications filed during senior year expanded my intellectual property portfolio to include energy storage optimization algorithms, smart grid integration protocols, and predictive maintenance systems that could reduce operational costs while maximizing energy output. These patents created comprehensive protection for the technological innovations that distinguished Thomson Renewable Solutions from established competitors. The patent portfolio attracted attention from technology licensing organizations and established energy companies seeking to acquire innovative solutions that could enhance their existing product offerings. However, rather than licensing these technologies individually, I chose to maintain ownership while using them as foundation for building an integrated company that could provide comprehensive renewable energy solutions. Manufacturing partnerships established during this period included agreements with precision component suppliers and assembly contractors that could support production volumes exceeding 50,000 units annually, while maintaining quality standards necessary for residential and commercial markets. These partnerships eliminated the need for substantial capital investments in manufacturing facilities while providing flexibility to scale production based on market demand. Quality assurance systems developed for these manufacturing partnerships included comprehensive testing protocols and reliability standards that exceeded industry requirements. The rigorous quality focus was essential for building customer confidence and brand reputation, that could support premium pricing strategies and long-term market leadership. Customer acquisition strategies during senior year focused on establishing relationships with solar installation companies that could integrate Thomson Renewable Solutions products into their standard offerings. These partnerships provided access to existing customer relationships while leveraging installer expertise in system design and project management that complemented my technological innovations. The most significant partnership opportunity emerged from discussions with SunPower Installations, a regional company that specialized in high-end residential projects and was seeking differentiation from competitors who competed primarily on price rather than performance. SunPower's management recognized that my integrated energy management system could justify premium pricing while providing measurable benefits that wealthy homeowners would value. SunPower's pilot program involved installing my systems in 20 high-end homes throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut, with comprehensive monitoring to document energy generation improvements and customer satisfaction levels. The pilot results exceeded all projections, showing average energy generation increases of 35% compared to conventional fixed systems, along with customer satisfaction ratings above 95%. The success of the SunPower pilot program generated referrals to other premium installation companies throughout New England, creating demand that exceeded my initial production capacity. This success validated my market positioning strategy, while demonstrating the scalability potential that attracted serious venture capital interest. Academic recognition during senior year included selection for MIT's Technology Pioneer Award, which acknowledged student innovations with demonstrated potential for significant commercial and social impact. The award ceremony provided networking opportunities with technology leaders, potential investors, and strategic partners who could accelerate Thomson Renewable Solutions' growth and market penetration. Speaking engagements at Renewable Energy conferences established my reputation as a thought leader in solar optimization technologies, while generating qualified leads from potential customers and partners. These presentations contributed to brand development, while supporting customer acquisition efforts that were essential for achieving the growth rates necessary to attract institutional investment. Media coverage expanded beyond technology publications, to include business magazines and newspapers that documented my success as representative of young entrepreneurs who were building innovative companies while still completing their undergraduate education. Articles emphasized the potential for renewable energy technologies to create substantial economic value while addressing climate change and energy independence challenges. The increased visibility generated inquiries from documentary filmmakers and business schools interested in documenting my entrepreneurial journey as educational content for aspiring innovators. These opportunities provided additional platforms for sharing insights while building personal brand recognition that supported business development efforts. However, the most dramatic developments during senior year occurred within my family, as Tyler and Jake's athletic careers encountered challenges that fundamentally altered the trajectory that had consumed my parents' attention and financial resources for nearly a decade. Tyler's junior season at the University of Hawaii, Minnesota started with extraordinary promise as professional scouts projected him as a potential first-round draft pick based on his sophomore year performance and preseason training results. His batting average, power statistics, and defensive skills had improved consistently throughout college, suggesting he was approaching the level necessary for professional success. However, Tyler suffered a severe shoulder injury during the third game of the season that required surgery and rehabilitation that would sideline him for the remainder of his junior year. The injury occurred during a routine play, but the damage to his rotator cuff was substantial enough that doctors questioned whether he would ever regain the arm strength necessary for competitive baseball at the professional level. The shoulder, surgery, and rehabilitation process consumed months of uncertainty, while Tyler worked with specialized physicians and physical therapists to restore functionality that might enable him to complete his senior season. My parents invested substantial financial resources in experimental treatments and elite rehabilitation programs that offered potential for accelerated recovery, but medical opinions remained divided about his long-term prospects. Professional scouts who had been actively recruiting Tyler prior to his injury adopted a wait-and-see approach that effectively eliminated him from early draft consideration. The injury created questions about his durability and long-term performance potential that would require demonstration through successful competition before professional teams would consider significant investment in his career. Jake's situation at the Florida Sports Academy became equally problematic as his behavioral issues resurfaced under the pressure of elite competition and college recruitment processes. Despite his remarkable athletic talents, Jake struggled with authority relationships and team dynamics that created conflicts with coaches and teammates who were essential for his development and college opportunities. The behavioral problems that had initially brought Jake into the foster system had never been completely resolved, only managed through structured environments and professional counseling. The intense pressure of college recruitment and the expectation of athletic scholarship success triggered anxiety and defiance patterns that undermined his relationships with the coaches who would determine his future opportunities. Multiple incidents involving disrespectful behavior toward coaching staff and conflicts with teammates created reputation issues that affected Jake's recruitment prospects. College coaches who had initially shown strong interest began expressing concerns about his character and coachability that could affect team chemistry and program success. My parents found themselves managing crises for both Tyler and Jake simultaneously. While their own financial situation became increasingly strained through years of supporting athletic development that was no longer generating the anticipated returns, the substantial investments in training, equipment, medical care, and specialized programs had consumed significant portions of their retirement savings without producing the college scholarships or professional opportunities that had justified these expenses. My father's career had stagnated as he approached his late 50s, with limited opportunities for advancement or salary increases that could offset the mounting costs of supporting Tyler's rehabilitation and Jake's ongoing behavioral counseling. His company had implemented cost-cutting measures that eliminated bonuses and reduced overtime opportunities that had previously supplemented his base salary. My mother's teaching position provided stability but no growth potential, while increased health insurance costs and rising living expenses strained their budget beyond what her salary could support. The combination of reduced income and increased expenses created financial stress that affected every aspect of their daily life and future planning. The house in Maple Grove required significant maintenance and repair work that they could no longer afford to address promptly. Deferred maintenance on heating systems, roofing, and appliances created ongoing concerns about major expenses that could emerge without warning. Property tax increases had outpaced their income growth, creating additional budget pressure. Friends and colleagues who had maintained conservative financial planning were enjoying comfortable preparations for retirement, while my parents faced the prospect of working additional years to rebuild savings that had been depleted through supporting athletic pursuits that were no longer viable. The contrast between their circumstances and those of peers who had invested in education and traditional career development became increasingly apparent. Christmas preparations during my senior year revealed the extent of their financial difficulties, as gift-giving was substantially reduced, and traditional holiday celebrations were scaled back due to budget constraints. The house that had once showcased Tyler and Jake's athletic achievements now felt subdued and anxious as uncertainty about their futures created tension that affected every family interaction. My own success with Thompson Renewable Solutions remained largely unknown to my family, as I had maintained the emotional distance established during sophomore year, rather than seeking recognition from people who had consistently prioritized other achievements over my innovations. The company's growing revenue and industry recognition represented validation I no longer needed from family members who had never understood or valued my interests. The foundation was established for the dramatic reversal of family dynamics that would emerge over the following years as my renewable energy company continued expanding, while Tyler and Jake's athletic dreams collapsed under the weight of injury and behavioral challenges that eliminated the professional opportunities my parents had sacrificed everything to pursue. Graduation from MIT in June marked the transition from student entrepreneur to full-time CEO of Thomson Renewable Solutions, a company that had grown from basement prototypes to a legitimate player in the rapidly expanding solar technology market. The ceremony felt surreal as I walked across the stage to receive my engineering degree, while knowing that the company I had built during college was already generating more revenue than most graduates would earn in their first decade of employment. My parents attended the graduation ceremony, flying to Boston for what would be their first extended visit to see my life at MIT. The campus tour I provided revealed the laboratories where I had developed breakthrough technologies, the entrepreneurship center where Thomson Renewable Solutions had been incubated, and the academic environments that had transformed me from high school valedictorian to recognized technology innovator. Their reaction to seeing my achievements in context was complex and uncomfortable. They expressed pride in my academic accomplishments and seemed genuinely impressed by the scope of my research and business development activities. However, their questions remained focused on practical concerns about my post-graduation plans, rather than demonstrating genuine understanding of the commercial potential I had already demonstrated. The graduation dinner conversation revealed how completely disconnected they had become from my actual life and achievements. When I mentioned that Thomson Renewable Solutions had been selected for Series A venture capital funding, they asked whether I would be looking for real jobs with established companies, rather than recognizing that I was already running a growing technology business with expanding customer base and industry recognition. Their inability to comprehend that my hobby projects had evolved into a legitimate company with substantial revenue and growth potential highlighted the fundamental differences in how we understood success, risk, and professional achievement. They remained focused on traditional employment paths that offered security and predictability, rather than entrepreneurial ventures that created wealth through innovation and strategic execution. The summer following graduation was devoted to executing the Series A funding round that would provide $2 million in capital for accelerating product development, expanding manufacturing partnerships, and building the sales and marketing infrastructure necessary for national market penetration. The funding process required presenting to multiple venture capital firms while demonstrating market traction, competitive advantages, and management capabilities that could generate the returns investors required. Lead investor GreenTech Ventures specialized in renewable energy technologies and brought both capital and strategic expertise that could accelerate Thomson Renewable Solutions' growth trajectory. Managing partner Jennifer Walsh had previously built 2 successful clean energy companies and understood the operational challenges and market opportunities that would determine my company's long-term success. The venture capital funding enabled hiring key personnel, including a head of sales with extensive solar industry experience, a manufacturing director who could optimize production processes and quality systems, and a marketing manager who specialized in building brand recognition within technical markets. These hires transformed Thomson Renewable Solutions from one-person operation to legitimate technology company with the capabilities necessary for scaling operations. Product development accelerated substantially with additional engineering resources that could refine existing technologies while developing next-generation innovations that would maintain competitive advantages in rapidly evolving markets. The expanded development team included specialists in power electronics, energy storage systems, and smart grid integration who could address increasingly sophisticated customer requirements. Manufacturing capacity expanded through partnerships, with specialized contractors who could handle component fabrication, system assembly, and quality testing that met the reliability standards necessary for residential and commercial applications. These partnerships eliminated the need for substantial capital investments in production facilities while providing flexibility to scale based on market demand. Customer acquisition accelerated dramatically as the sales team leveraged industry relationships and technical expertise to establish partnerships with solar installation companies throughout New England and the Mid-Atlantic regions. The integrated energy management systems were generating measurable performance improvements that justified premium pricing while creating customer loyalty that supported sustainable growth. Market expansion during the second half of the year included successful pilots in California and Arizona markets, where favorable solar policies and high electricity costs created strong demand for efficiency optimization technologies. These geographic expansions validated the national scalability of Thomson Renewable Solutions' business model while establishing foundation for coast-to-coast market penetration. Industry recognition continued building throughout the year with awards from renewable energy organizations, inclusion in technology, innovation rankings, and speaking opportunities at major conferences that established my reputation as a thought leader in solar optimization technologies. Media coverage expanded to include national business publications that documented Thomson Renewable Solutions as representative of successful clean energy entrepreneurship. The business success enabled personal financial security that eliminated any remaining concerns about student loans, living expenses, or future educational opportunities. More importantly, it demonstrated that systematic innovation and strategic execution could generate extraordinary results for entrepreneurs who understood market needs and possessed the technical capabilities to develop superior solutions. However, while Thomson Renewable Solutions was experiencing unprecedented growth and success, my family's circumstances were deteriorating rapidly as the athletic careers they had invested everything in supporting collapsed under the weight of injuries and behavioral problems that eliminated any possibility of the professional opportunities they had anticipated. Tyler's senior season at the University of Minnesota became a tragic demonstration of how quickly athletic dreams could evaporate despite years of dedicated effort and family sacrifice. The shoulder rehabilitation had restored basic functionality, but not the arm strength and precision necessary for competing at the level that professional scouts required for draft consideration. His batting average dropped significantly as he struggled with the mechanical changes required to compensate for reduced arm strength and range of motion. The power statistics that had made him an attractive professional prospect disappeared entirely as he could no longer generate the bat speed necessary for hitting home runs or driving in runs consistently. Defensive performance suffered even more dramatically as Tyler could no longer make the strong, accurate throws required for competitive play at his position. Coaches were forced to limit his playing time and eventually move him to positions that required less arm strength, changes that effectively eliminated any remaining professional interest in his capabilities. Professional scouts who had previously expressed strong interest in Tyler's development stopped attending his games or returning phone calls from my parents, who were desperately seeking information about potential opportunities. The shoulder injury had ended his professional baseball prospects as definitively as a career-ending accident, but the process had extended over months of false hope and expensive rehabilitation efforts. The financial investment in Tyler's attempted comeback had consumed substantial resources through specialized medical treatments, experimental rehabilitation programs, and private coaching designed to help him adapt to his physical limitations. None of these interventions restored the capabilities necessary for professional consideration, but the costs continued mounting while my parents refused to acknowledge the reality of his situation. Jake's circumstances at the Florida Sports Academy deteriorated even more dramatically as his behavioral problems escalated beyond what specialized counseling and structured environments could manage effectively. The pressure of college recruitment and scholarship expectations had triggered psychological issues that manifested through increasingly serious conflicts with authority figures and teammates. Multiple incidents involving verbal confrontations with coaches, physical altercations with other athletes, and violations of academy rules created a disciplinary record that eliminated any remaining college interest in his athletic capabilities. Despite his remarkable natural talents, no college program was willing to accept the risks associated with recruiting an athlete whose behavior could disrupt team chemistry and program stability. The academy administration eventually recommended that Jake be withdrawn from their program due to repeated violations of behavioral expectations and inability to respond positively to counseling interventions. This recommendation effectively ended his athletic scholarship prospects while creating immediate needs for alternative educational and living arrangements that my parents were financially unable to provide. The collapse of both Tyler and Jake's athletic careers forced my parents to confront the reality that their decade-long investment in supporting professional sports ambitions had generated no recoverable value while consuming most of their retirement savings and compromising their own financial security. The college scholarships they had anticipated never materialized, leaving them responsible for educational expenses they could no longer afford. My father's employment situation became increasingly precarious as his company implemented additional cost-cutting measures that eliminated his position through reorganization and downsizing efforts. At 58 years old, he faced limited prospects for finding comparable employment with salary and benefits that could support their financial obligations and retirement planning needs. My mother's teaching position provided basic income stability, but no growth potential, while benefit costs continued increasing and pension contributions remained insufficient to support comfortable retirement. The combination of reduced household income and mounting expenses from Tyler's medical bills and Jake's counseling costs created unsustainable financial pressure. The house in Maple Grove required major repairs that they could no longer afford to address, including roof replacement, heating system updates, and foundation work that represented tens of thousands of dollars in essential maintenance. Deferred maintenance was creating additional problems that would require even more expensive emergency repairs if not addressed promptly. Credit card debt had accumulated substantially as they attempted to maintain Tyler and Jake's support systems, despite reduced income and depleted savings. The monthly payments were consuming increasing portions of their available cash flow, while interest charges prevented meaningful progress toward debt reduction. Bankruptcy consultation became a serious consideration as their financial obligations exceeded their ability to maintain current payments. Friends and family members were beginning to recognize the extent of their financial difficulties as social activities were declined due to budget constraints and lifestyle changes became apparent. Through reduced spending on clothing, entertainment, and travel, the contrast between their circumstances and those of peers who had maintained conservative financial planning created embarrassment and social isolation. Christmas planning for that year was drastically reduced as gift budgets were eliminated, and traditional celebrations were canceled due to financial constraints. The house that had once been filled with optimism about Tyler and Jake's futures now felt oppressive and anxiety-ridden as uncertainty about basic financial survival created tension that affected every family interaction. Extended family gatherings became uncomfortable as relatives asked about Tyler and Jake's college and career prospects, while my parents struggled to explain how promising athletic careers had dissolved into expensive disappointments that compromised their own retirement. Security. The questions were well-intentioned, but painful reminders of how completely their strategic planning had failed. During this period of mounting family crisis, my own success with Thompson Renewable Solutions continued accelerating as year-end. Results exceeded all projections for revenue growth, customer acquisition, and market expansion. The company was approaching profitability ahead of schedule while building foundation for the international expansion and strategic partnerships that could establish permanent market leadership. The contrast between my systematic business success and my family's desperate circumstances would have been poetic justice if I had felt any satisfaction from their difficulties. Instead, I felt disconnected sadness about people who had taught me that love and support were conditional upon meeting their definitions of achievement and worthiness. The foundation was established for the dramatic confrontation that would emerge over the following year, as my family's financial desperation would eventually force them to acknowledge the success they had never recognized or supported, setting up the inevitable request for help from the daughter they had consistently overlooked in favor of athletic pursuits that generated nothing but debt and disappointment. The second year of Thompson Renewable Solutions operations brought achievements that exceeded the most optimistic projections from our Series A funding round. Revenue growth of 400% transformed the company from promising startup to recognized industry leader. While customer satisfaction metrics above 98% created word-of-mouth marketing that generated qualified leads faster than our expanded sales team could process them effectively. Industry recognition reached unprecedented levels when Thomson Renewable Solutions was selected as Clean Energy Startup of the Year by the National Renewable Energy Association, an award that placed my company among the most innovative and successful ventures in the rapidly expanding sustainable technology sector. The award ceremony in Denver provided networking opportunities with Fortune 500 executives, government officials, and international investors seeking partnerships with American clean energy innovators. Media coverage surrounding the award generated national attention that positioned me as a representative voice for young entrepreneurs who were building solutions to climate change and energy independence challenges. Interview requests from major business publications, television programs, and industry podcasts created platforms for sharing insights about technology innovation and entrepreneurship while building brand recognition that supported continued customer acquisition. The most significant business development during this period was securing a $15 million contract with Pacific Energy Corporation to provide integrated energy management systems for their residential solar installations across California, Nevada, and Arizona. This partnership represented validation from one of the largest solar installation companies in the United States while providing revenue visibility that supported planning for international expansion and additional product development. Pacific Energy's endorsement attracted attention from other major installation companies seeking competitive advantages through superior technology offerings. Within 6 months, Thomson Renewable Solutions had established partnerships with installation companies in Texas, Florida, and the Southeast region, creating nationwide distribution channels that could support the scaling necessary for eventual acquisition or public offering opportunities. Manufacturing capacity expanded through strategic partnerships with automated assembly contractors who could maintain quality standards while reducing production costs through economies of scale. These improvements enabled competitive pricing strategies that made Thomson Renewable Solutions products accessible to broader market segments while maintaining profit margins sufficient for continued innovation and growth investments. International expansion accelerated when the European Union's renewable energy initiatives created substantial demand for advanced solar optimization technologies. Initial partnerships with installation companies in Germany and the Netherlands demonstrated strong market acceptance, while providing foundation for broader European market penetration that could multiply revenue opportunities. The international success attracted attention from sovereign wealth funds and strategic investors who specialized in scaling American technology companies into global markets. Preliminary discussions with these investors revealed valuations approaching $100 million for Thomson Renewable Solutions, reflecting recognition of our market position, intellectual property portfolio, and demonstrated ability to execute complex business development initiatives. Patent portfolio expansion continued throughout the year with applications covering next-generation energy storage integration, artificial intelligence optimization algorithms, and predictive maintenance systems that could reduce operational costs while maximizing energy output. These patents created comprehensive protection for technological innovations while establishing barriers to competitive replication that supported premium pricing strategies. Research and development investments funded by our growing revenue streams enabled breakthrough innovations in energy storage optimization that could increase battery life by 40%, while reducing system costs through improved charging algorithms and thermal management. These advances positioned Thomson Renewable Solutions at the forefront of the residential energy storage market that analysts projected would grow to $20 billion annually within 5 years. The company's success enabled personal financial achievements that validated every decision I had made about pursuing independent innovation rather than seeking family approval or support. Stock options and dividend distributions from Thomson Renewable Solutions provided wealth that exceeded anything achievable through traditional employment, while creating foundation for future investments and philanthropic initiatives. More importantly, the success demonstrated that systematic innovation and strategic execution could generate extraordinary results for entrepreneurs who understood market needs and possessed the determination to build solutions despite external skepticism or lack of support. The recognition and achievements represented vindication of capabilities that my family had never acknowledged or valued. However, while Thomson Renewable Solutions was achieving unprecedented success and industry recognition, my family's circumstances had deteriorated to the point where basic financial survival required dramatic lifestyle changes and difficult decisions about their future security and independence. Tyler's attempt to continue his baseball career through independent league opportunities had failed completely, as his physical limitations from the shoulder injury prevented competitive performance even at semi-professional levels. The dream that had consumed over a decade of family resources and emotional investment had ended with Tyler working part-time retail jobs while living in my parents' basement and contributing nothing toward household expenses. His psychological adjustment to the end of his athletic career proved even more challenging than the physical rehabilitation. The identity and self-worth that had been built around baseball excellence left him unprepared for adult life without the constant validation and attention that athletic success had provided since childhood. Depression and anxiety required professional counseling that added additional expenses to my parents' strained budget. Jake's situation became even more problematic after his expulsion from the Florida Sports Academy eliminated his remaining college scholarship prospects. His return to Minnesota without educational plans or employment prospects created household tension, while his behavioral issues continued requiring expensive counseling and supervision that my parents could no longer afford. Multiple incidents, involving law enforcement for minor offenses and conflicts with authority figures, created legal expenses and court-ordered counseling requirements that further strained family resources. Jake's inability to maintain employment or contribute to household expenses while requiring ongoing financial support created additional stress for parents who were struggling with their own economic survival. My father's unemployment had extended beyond 6 months as companies consistently selected younger candidates with updated technical skills over experienced engineers approaching retirement age. The job search process had become demoralizing as interview opportunities decreased while savings continued depleting through ongoing living expenses and support for Tyler and Jake. Unemployment benefits provided minimal income replacement while health insurance costs increased substantially through COBRA coverage that consumed nearly half of their available monthly cash flow. The combination of reduced income and increased expenses created unsustainable financial pressure that required immediate intervention to prevent complete financial collapse. My mother's teaching position had become their only reliable income source, but her salary was insufficient to support 4 adults while maintaining mortgage payments, utility bills, and basic living expenses. The stress of being the sole income provider while managing Tyler and Jake's ongoing needs created health problems that required medical attention they could no longer afford. Credit card debt had accumulated to over $80,000 as my parents attempted to maintain Tyler and Jake's support systems despite their inability to generate income or contribute to household expenses. Monthly payments consumed most of my mother's salary, while interest charges prevented meaningful progress toward debt reduction, creating a downward spiral that threatened bankruptcy. The house in Maple Grove faced foreclosure proceedings as mortgage. Payments had fallen behind due to prioritizing credit card payments and basic living expenses over housing costs. The property that had once represented their primary asset and retirement security was becoming a liability they could no longer afford to maintain. Deferred maintenance had created additional problems, including a failing heating system, roof leaks, and plumbing issues that required immediate attention to prevent further property damage. The estimated repair costs exceeded $30,000, while their available cash flow was insufficient to address even the most urgent safety concerns. Extended family members and longtime friends were becoming aware of their financial crisis as social. Activities were declined, and lifestyle changes became apparent through reduced spending on clothing, entertainment, and travel. The contrast between their circumstances and those of peers who had maintained conservative financial planning created embarrassment and social isolation that affected their mental health and relationship stability. Christmas preparations were completely eliminated as gift budgets were redirected toward basic survival needs, including food, utilities, and minimum debt payments. The house that had once been filled with athletic trophies and optimistic future planning now felt oppressive and hopeless as daily conversations focused on financial survival rather than family achievement or togetherness. Religious and community. Organizations that had previously celebrated Tyler and Jake's athletic achievements began offering assistance with food banks and utility payment programs designed for families experiencing economic hardship. Accepting charity from organizations where they had once been respected, community members created additional psychological trauma that affected their ability to maintain social relationships. Legal consultation regarding bankruptcy options revealed that their debt levels and income situation would qualify for Chapter 7 proceedings that could eliminate credit card obligations while potentially preserving home ownership if they could demonstrate ability to maintain mortgage payments. However, the bankruptcy process would require liquidating remaining assets while destroying credit ratings that had taken decades to establish. The most painful realization for my parents was acknowledging that their strategic decision to invest everything in Tyler and Jake's athletic development had generated no recoverable value while consuming resources that could have provided comfortable retirement security through conservative investment approaches. The college scholarships they had anticipated never materialized, leaving them responsible for educational and living expenses they could no longer afford. Friends and colleagues who had maintained traditional career focus and conservative financial planning were enjoying comfortable retirement preparations while my parents faced the prospect of working additional years to rebuild savings that had been completely depleted through supporting athletic pursuits that generated nothing but debt and disappointment. The irony of their situation became particularly acute when news reports about my company's success began appearing in local media that their friends and neighbors were reading. Articles about Thomson Renewable Solutions' growth and industry recognition created conversations about my achievements while highlighting the contrast between my independent success and their desperate circumstances. Community members who remembered my academic achievements during high school began making connections between my current business success and my family background, leading to uncomfortable questions about why my parents had not supported the child who was achieving extraordinary entrepreneurial results while investing everything in athletic pursuits that had generated no positive outcomes. These social dynamics created additional stress as my parents were forced to acknowledge publicly that their resource allocation decisions had failed catastrophically, while the child they had consistently overlooked was building industry-leading companies that generated wealth and recognition they had never imagined possible. The foundation was established for the inevitable moment when their pride would be overwhelmed by desperation, forcing them to reach out to the daughter they had never supported in hopes that her success could somehow rescue them from the consequences of their own strategic failures and misplaced priorities. The first attempt at contact came on a Tuesday morning in October through a carefully worded text message from my mother that began with casual inquiries about my health and well-being before gradually shifting toward more pointed questions about my business activities and whether I was doing well financially. The message felt calculated and desperate, lacking the genuine maternal warmth that would have characterized authentic concern about my welfare. I had not spoken with my parents in over 8 months, maintaining the emotional distance that had developed throughout college and my early entrepreneurial years. Their lack of interest in my achievements during family conversations had taught me that seeking their approval or recognition was futile. So I had stopped providing updates about Thomson Renewable Solutions' growth and success. The timing of My mother's outreach was particularly ironic, given that the same week had brought news that Thomson Renewable Solutions had been selected for Forbes' 30 Under 30 list in the energy sector, recognition that positioned me among the most successful young entrepreneurs in America. The magazine feature would be published in their December issue, creating national visibility that would inevitably reach my hometown community and extended family network. My response to my mother's text message was polite but non-committal, acknowledging her inquiry while providing minimal information about my current circumstances. I mentioned that business was going well, without elaborating on the specific achievements or financial success that Thomson Renewable Solutions had generated. The conversation felt stilted and artificial, lacking the natural flow that should exist between family members who genuinely cared about each other's welfare. Over the following weeks, my mother's text messages became more frequent and gradually more direct in their inquiries about my financial situation and business success. She mentioned reading somewhere that renewable energy companies were doing very well these days, and wondered whether my projects had developed into anything substantial. The transparent fishing for information was both pathetic and insulting. My father eventually joined these communication attempts through awkward phone calls that began with forced small talk about weather and current events before transitioning to questions about my career prospects and whether I had considered investment opportunities that might benefit from family partnerships. His approach was slightly more sophisticated than my mother's text messages, but equally transparent in its underlying desperation. The most revealing conversation occurred in early November when my father called ostensibly to discuss Tyler's situation and ongoing struggles with depression and career uncertainty. During this call, he mentioned that Tyler was looking for business opportunities and wondered whether my experience with technology companies might provide insights that could help Tyler get back on his feet. The suggestion that Tyler, who had never shown interest in business or technology, might somehow benefit from my entrepreneurial expertise was absurd. More fundamentally, the request ignored the reality that Tyler's career difficulties resulted from his exclusive focus on athletics, rather than developing any practical skills or professional capabilities that could support adult employment. My response emphasized that successful business development required years of systematic skill building, market research, and strategic planning that couldn't be acquired quickly or transferred through casual advice. I suggested that Tyler might benefit more from focusing on entry-level employment opportunities that could provide steady income while he developed practical work experience and professional capabilities. This practical advice was clearly not what my father wanted to hear, as his follow-up questions revealed his hope that I might provide Tyler with employment opportunities or investment capital that could jumpstart his transition into business success. The underlying assumption that my success could somehow be leveraged to solve Tyler's problems without corresponding effort or qualification from Tyler himself demonstrated fundamental misunderstanding of how entrepreneurial achievement actually works. The communication attempts continued escalating throughout November as my parents' financial situation deteriorated beyond their ability to maintain basic expenses. Foreclosure proceedings had advanced to the point where they had received final notices requiring immediate payment of overdue mortgage amounts exceeding $15,000 or face legal action that could result in loss of their home. Credit card companies had begun aggressive collection efforts, including daily phone calls and written demands for payment that created constant stress, while highlighting the impossibility of their debt situation. The minimum payments alone exceeded my mother's take-home salary, making any meaningful debt reduction impossible without dramatic intervention or additional income sources. Utility companies had issued disconnection notices for both electricity and natural gas services due to overdue payments that my parents could no longer prioritize, given their need to maintain mortgage payments and basic food expenses. The prospect of spending winter in Minnesota without heat created immediate health and safety concerns that forced consideration of desperate alternatives. Jake's behavioral problems had escalated to the point where he was facing potential criminal charges for incidents involving property damage and conflicts with law enforcement. Legal representation costs for defending against these charges would require resources my parents simply didn't possess, creating additional stress while highlighting their complete inability to continue supporting his ongoing needs. Tyler's psychological deterioration had reached levels requiring intensive counseling and potentially psychiatric intervention that would cost thousands of dollars per month. His inability to adjust to life without athletic achievement had created depression severe enough that my parents feared for his safety while lacking financial resources to provide appropriate professional help. The combination of immediate crisis and long-term hopelessness created desperation that finally overcame whatever pride had prevented my parents from directly asking for financial assistance from the daughter whose success they had never acknowledged or supported. The breakthrough came through a phone call in late November that began with my mother crying while attempting to explain their temporary difficulties and unexpected challenges that had created cash flow problems. The euphemisms and indirect language couldn't disguise the reality that my parents were facing complete financial collapse, while desperately hoping that my business success could somehow rescue them from consequences of their own strategic failures. The conversation was painful and uncomfortable, as my mother struggled to ask for help while avoiding acknowledgement of the fundamental errors in judgment that had created their crisis. When she finally managed to directly request financial assistance, the amount mentioned was staggering. They needed over $50,000 immediately to prevent foreclosure while addressing overdue credit card payments and basic living expenses. Additionally, they were seeking ongoing monthly support exceeding $5,000 to maintain their household, while Tyler and Jake developed career plans that could enable financial independence. The financial request represented more money than my parents had ever provided for my education or business development combined. More fundamentally, it ignored the reality that their crisis resulted from systematic poor decision-making rather than temporary setbacks that could be resolved through one-time assistance. My response was carefully measured and emotionally controlled. Despite the anger and frustration I felt about their assumptions and approach, I acknowledged their difficulties while pointing out that financial assistance without fundamental changes in spending habits and dependency relationships would simply delay rather than resolve their underlying problems. I suggested that Tyler and Jake, both adults in their 20s, needed to accept responsibility for supporting themselves rather than expecting continued financial assistance from parents who could no longer afford to provide such support. The expectation that I should somehow fund their ongoing dependency while they pursued undefined career development was unrealistic and unfair. The conversation became increasingly tense as my mother insisted that family members should support each other during difficult times while refusing to acknowledge that I had received no such support during my own challenging periods in college and early business development. Her selective memory about family loyalty was both hypocritical and insulting. When I pointed out that their crisis resulted from decades of prioritizing Tyler and Jake's athletic pursuits over practical financial planning, my mother became defensive and accused me of being unsympathetic to family difficulties. She suggested that my business success had made me selfish and uncaring about people who had always supported me. The claim that they had always supported me was particularly galling, given their consistent pattern of minimizing my achievements, while investing everything in Tyler and Jake's failed athletic careers. Their definition of support apparently included redirecting my college fund toward unsuccessful business ventures, while expecting me to finance my education independently. The conversation ended without resolution as my mother hung up after I refused to provide immediate financial assistance without comprehensive planning for addressing the underlying issues that had created their crisis. Her final comment about expecting more from family revealed the fundamental entitlement that had characterized her approach to this desperate situation. Over the following days, my father attempted different approaches, including suggestions about business partnerships, where their experience and connections could somehow contribute to Thompson Renewable Solutions continued growth in exchange for equity positions or consulting arrangements. These proposals demonstrated complete ignorance about my company's actual operations and market position. The most insulting proposal involved my father's suggestion that Tyler could serve as a business development associate for Thomson Renewable Solutions, leveraging his leadership experience and competitive drive to help expand our customer base. The suggestion that Tyler's failed athletic career somehow qualified him for a senior position in a successful technology company was delusional. The communication attempts became increasingly desperate and manipulative as my parents realized that their straightforward requests for financial assistance were not generating the response they had anticipated. Appeals to family loyalty, guilt about their sacrifices for my education, and suggestions about moral obligations to help relatives in need revealed their complete misunderstanding of the relationship dynamics they had created through years of conditional support and misplaced priorities. The most revealing moment came when my mother sent a long text message detailing their financial obligations, while emphasizing that my substantial income made their requested assistance easily affordable for someone in my position. The assumption that my success created automatic responsibility for funding their lifestyle and supporting Tyler and Jake's ongoing dependency demonstrated fundamental confusion about how wealth creation and family obligations actually work. My final response to these escalating requests was direct and uncompromising. I pointed out that their crisis resulted from systematic poor decision-making rather than external circumstances beyond their control. The decades of financial sacrifice for unsuccessful athletic pursuits while neglecting practical planning had created predictable consequences that couldn't be resolved through external rescue efforts. More fundamentally, I emphasized that their complete lack of interest in my achievements during college and early business development had taught me that their love and support were conditional upon meeting their specific definitions of success. Having learned to succeed independently, I saw no reason to fund the consequences of their strategic failures, while they continued refusing to acknowledge the fundamental errors that had created their difficulties. The communication ceased after this final exchange, but I knew their desperation would eventually force more dramatic attempts to access the financial resources that Thomson Renewable Solutions had generated. The foundation was established for the confrontation that would bring everything full circle during the Christmas season that had once represented family togetherness, but would instead highlight the complete reversal of our circumstances and expectations. December brought the publication of Forbes' 30 Under 30 issue, featuring my profile as one of America's most successful young energy entrepreneurs. The 6-page article detailed Thomson Renewable Solutions' growth from MIT student project to industry-leading company generating over $25 million in annual revenue while serving customers across North America and Europe. The magazine hit newsstands on December 3rd, and within hours my phone was receiving calls and messages from college classmates, former professors, high school teachers, and extended family members who had seen the article. The coverage positioned me among the most successful young entrepreneurs in the country, while documenting my journey from scholarship student to CEO of a company valued at over $150 million. What made the Forbes feature particularly significant was its detailed documentation of Thomson Renewable Solutions' origin story, including my development of solar tracking technologies during college while financing my education independently, after family resources were redirected toward other priorities. The article tactfully described my self-funded approach to college and early business development without explicitly criticizing my family's decision-making. The magazine's fact-checking process had confirmed the substantial revenue growth, customer satisfaction metrics, and industry recognition that validated Thomson Renewable Solutions' market position while highlighting my role as founder and CEO. Quotes from customers, industry analysts, and investors provided third-party validation of the company's technological innovations and commercial success. Media attention accelerated dramatically following the Forbes publication, with interview requests from national television programs, technology podcasts, and business publications seeking commentary on renewable energy trends and entrepreneurship strategies. These opportunities provided platforms for sharing insights while building brand recognition that supported continued customer acquisition and strategic partnership development. The most significant immediate impact was attracting serious acquisition. Interest from Fortune 500 energy companies seeking to expand their renewable energy capabilities through strategic acquisitions. Initial conversations with 3 major corporations revealed valuations approaching $200 million for Thomson Renewable Solutions, reflecting recognition of our technological advantages and market position. However, the Forbes article also meant that news of my success would inevitably reach my hometown community and extended family network, creating the visibility that would force my parents to confront the magnitude of achievements they had never acknowledged or supported. The article made it impossible for them to continue treating my business development as hobby activities rather than legitimate commercial success. Local media in Minnesota picked up the Forbes story within days, with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune running a feature about my success as a local entrepreneur making national impact in renewable energy. The article included background about my academic achievements at Maple Grove High School, while noting my family's local connections without discussing the circumstances that had led to my independent path. Community members who remembered my academic excellence during high school began making connections between my current success and my family background, leading to conversations that highlighted the irony of parents who had overlooked their most successful child in favor of athletic pursuits that generated no lasting value. The social dynamics in Maple Grove became increasingly uncomfortable for my parents as friends, neighbors, and colleagues began asking about my achievements while they struggled to explain their complete lack of involvement in my business development. These conversations forced acknowledgement of strategic decisions that now appeared obviously misguided. Extended family members who had followed Tyler and Jake's athletic careers throughout high school and college were particularly vocal about the contrast between my documented success and my parents' investment priorities. Holiday gatherings became opportunities for relatives to discuss my Forbes recognition, while questioning resource allocation decisions that had overlooked my potential. My maternal grandmother, Eleanor, was especially direct in her criticism during a phone conversation that my aunt later described to me. According to family reports, Eleanor had expressed bewilderment about my parents' decision to redirect my college fund while ignoring the academic and technical achievements that clearly predicted entrepreneurial success. The family pressure intensified. When my Uncle Robert, my father's brother, called to discuss the Forbes article and my business achievements. Robert had always been more supportive of my academic interests and was genuinely excited about my success, while questioning why my parents had never mentioned Thomson Renewable Solutions during family gatherings over the previous 2 years. These conversations created additional stress for my parents who were already struggling with financial crisis, while attempting to manage Tyler and Jake's ongoing dependency and behavioral problems. The recognition that they had failed to support their most successful child while investing everything in failed athletic careers generated guilt and regret that complicated their desperate circumstances. My mother's response to the Forbes publication was particularly revealing, as she began posting social media content highlighting my achievements while suggesting that she had always known Maya would be successful and expressing pride in my accomplishments. The revisionist history was both pathetic and insulting, given her documented lack of interest in my business development. Facebook posts and Instagram stories featured screenshots of the Forbes article alongside childhood photos of me working on science projects, creating a narrative of maternal support and encouragement that bore no resemblance to the actual dynamics of our relationship during my academic and entrepreneurial development. Friends and community members who knew the reality of my family's priorities during high school and college found my mother's social media campaign particularly hypocritical. Several people commented on her posts with questions about why she had never mentioned my business activities during previous conversations about family achievements. The most uncomfortable social situation occurred at my parents' church, where congregation members who had followed Tyler and Jake's athletic careers began asking detailed questions about my business success while expressing confusion about why my achievements had never been discussed during family prayer requests or celebration announcements. Church members who remembered my academic excellence and science fair victories during high school were particularly vocal about the apparent disconnect between my documented capabilities and my parents' focus on supporting Tyler and Jake's athletic pursuits. These conversations created embarrassment and defensive reactions that highlighted the extent of their strategic errors. Meanwhile, Tyler's psychological condition continued deteriorating as news coverage of my success created painful comparisons between his failed athletic career and my entrepreneurial achievements. The depression and anxiety that had developed following his injury were compounded by recognition that the sister he had always overshadowed was achieving extraordinary success without family support. Tyler's inability to secure stable employment or develop practical career skills had left him completely dependent on my parents' financial support, while contributing nothing to household income or domestic responsibilities. His presence in their basement had become a constant reminder of poor investment decisions while creating additional stress and expense they could no longer afford. Jake's behavioral problems escalated further when news reports about my success generated anger and resentment about the perceived unfairness of our different circumstances. His pattern of blaming external factors for his difficulties extended to suggesting that my success resulted from luck or unfair advantages, rather than systematic effort and strategic planning. The criminal charges Jake was facing for property damage and conflicts with law enforcement had progressed to the point where plea negotiations required substantial legal fees my parents could not afford. Public defender services were available, but the quality of representation would likely result in conviction and potential jail time that would eliminate any remaining employment prospects. My father's unemployment had extended beyond 9 months, as his age and outdated technical skills made him increasingly unattractive to employers seeking adaptable workers who could contribute immediately without extensive retraining. The job search process had become demoralizing while highlighting how his career focus on supporting Tyler and Jake's athletics had prevented maintaining professional development. The family's financial situation had reached critical levels as foreclosure proceedings advanced toward final judgment, while utility companies implemented disconnection schedules for overdue accounts. Winter heating costs in Minnesota made utility service essential for basic survival, creating health and safety concerns that required immediate intervention. Legal consultations regarding bankruptcy had revealed that their debt levels and asset situation would qualify for Chapter 7 proceedings that could eliminate credit card obligations while potentially preserving home ownership if they could demonstrate sustainable income streams. However, the bankruptcy process would require liquidating remaining valuable possessions while destroying credit ratings. The most painful aspect of their crisis was acknowledging that friends and colleagues who had maintained conservative financial planning were enjoying comfortable retirement preparations while they faced the prospect of working additional years to rebuild resources that had been consumed through supporting unsuccessful ventures. Community recognition of my success through the Forbes article made these contrasts particularly acute as neighbors and friends began making connections between my achievements and my family's struggles. The irony of parents who had overlooked their most successful child while investing everything in failed pursuits was becoming apparent to everyone in their social network. Christmas planning was completely suspended as available resources were redirected toward preventing foreclosure and maintaining basic utilities during winter months. The house that had once been filled with optimism about Tyler and Jake's futures now felt desperate and hopeless as survival concerns eliminated any possibility of holiday celebration. The accumulation of financial pressure, social embarrassment, and family dysfunction created emotional breaking points that would manifest through increasingly desperate and manipulative attempts to access the resources that Thompson Renewable Solutions had generated. The foundation was established for the confrontational text message that would finally force direct acknowledgement of the relationship dynamics that had developed through years of conditional support and misplaced priorities. As December progressed, toward Christmas, The contrast between my documented success and their desperate circumstances would prove unbearable for parents who had never learned to acknowledge achievements that fell outside their narrow definitions of worthiness and value. The stage was set for the message that would bring our relationship to its inevitable conclusion, while highlighting the complete reversal of power and dependency that their strategic failures had created. The final escalation began on December 18th when my mother called with what she described as exciting family news that required immediate discussion. Her voice carried forced enthusiasm that barely concealed underlying desperation, as she explained that Tyler had been offered a business opportunity that could turn everything around for their family situation. The opportunity, according to my mother, involved Tyler partnering with a local entrepreneur to start a sports training facility that would provide coaching and development services for young athletes. The venture required $75,000 in startup capital, but my mother insisted that Tyler's expertise and local reputation made success virtually guaranteed. When I asked for details about Tyler's qualifications for running a business or his partner's background and experience, my mother became evasive while emphasizing that this represented Tyler's big break that could provide the financial stability he needed to become independent. The desperation in her voice made it clear that this was less about Tyler's business prospects and more about her hope that I would provide the funding. The conversation revealed that my parents had convinced themselves that my success with Thompson Renewable Solutions created moral obligations to support Tyler's undefined business aspirations. They had apparently developed an elaborate fantasy where my entrepreneurial expertise and financial resources could somehow transform Tyler's failed athletic career into business success without corresponding effort or qualification from Tyler himself. My response was direct and uncompromising. I pointed out that successful business development required years of systematic skill building, market research, and strategic planning that couldn't be acquired through athletic experience or family connections. Tyler's complete lack of business education, professional experience, or demonstrated interest in entrepreneurship made any venture involving him extremely high risk. More fundamentally, I emphasized that their request ignored the reality that my business success resulted from systematic effort and strategic decision-making rather than external funding or family support. The suggestion that I should now provide capital for Tyler's speculative ventures, while he had never demonstrated any business capabilities, was both unrealistic and unfair. The conversation became increasingly heated as my mother accused me of being selfish and unsupportive of family members who needed help during difficult times. She suggested that my success had made me arrogant and uncaring about people who had sacrificed everything to support my education and opportunities. The claim that they had sacrificed for my education was particularly galling given their documented pattern of redirecting my college fund while expecting me to finance my education independently. Their selective memory about family support and financial priorities revealed the fundamental entitlement that characterized their approach to my success. When I reminded my mother that they had provided no financial support for my business development while investing everything in Tyler and Jake's failed athletic careers, she became defensive and angry. She insisted that athletic scholarships would have provided guaranteed returns, while suggesting that my business success resulted from lucky timing rather than competence and strategic planning. The conversation ended abruptly when I refused to consider funding Tyler's sports facility venture without comprehensive business planning and evidence of market demand. My mother's final comment about expecting loyalty from family revealed her complete misunderstanding of the relationship dynamics that their conditional support had created. Over the following days, my father attempted different approaches, including suggestions about consulting arrangements, where I could provide Tyler with business mentorship and strategic guidance in exchange for equity positions in his venture. These proposals demonstrated continued ignorance about both Tyler's capabilities and my company's actual operations. The most insulting suggestion involved my father's recommendation that Thompson Renewable Solutions could sponsor Tyler's sports facility as a marketing investment, while providing him with a management position that would demonstrate corporate social responsibility. The assumption that my successful technology company should somehow subsidize Tyler's business fantasies was delusional. Meanwhile, Jake's criminal charges had progressed to plea negotiations, requiring immediate legal fees exceeding $8,000 to avoid conviction and potential jail time. My parents were facing the impossible choice between depleting their remaining resources to defend Jake or allowing him to face criminal penalties that would eliminate any future employment prospects. The utility disconnection notices had become final demands as natural gas service was scheduled for termination on December 22nd unless overdue payments exceeding $3,500 were received immediately. The prospect of spending Christmas without heat in Minnesota created immediate health and safety concerns while highlighting their complete inability to maintain basic living standards. Foreclosure proceedings had advanced to the point where sheriff's sale was scheduled for January 15th, unless they could provide full payment of overdue mortgage amounts exceeding $18,000. The house that had represented their primary asset and retirement security was becoming a liability they could no longer afford while creating legal obligations they couldn't fulfill. Christmas Eve brought the crescendo of desperation that had been building throughout December. My mother sent a series of increasingly frantic text messages detailing their immediate crisis while emphasizing that my substantial resources made their requested assistance easily manageable for someone in my financial position. The messages revealed that they had developed elaborate justifications for why my success created automatic responsibility for funding their lifestyle and supporting Tyler and Jake's ongoing dependency. Their entitlement was breathtaking in its scope and delusional in its assumptions about family obligations and wealth distribution. The breaking point came when my mother called Christmas morning with what she described as final ultimatum regarding my willingness to support family members during their crisis. The conversation began with accusations about my selfishness and abandonment of relatives who needed help, while I enjoyed excessive wealth that could easily resolve their difficulties. When I again refused to provide financial assistance, without fundamental changes in their spending habits and dependency relationships, my mother's response revealed the full extent of her entitlement and manipulation. She accused me of being ungrateful for the sacrifices they had made while suggesting that my success was somehow stolen from Tyler and Jake's rightful opportunities. The conversation escalated when my mother claimed that my refusal to help family members during crisis demonstrated moral failure and character defects that made me unworthy of the success I had achieved. Her suggestion that my entrepreneurial achievements were somehow illegitimate because I wouldn't share them with relatives who had never supported my development was both hypocritical and insulting. The final straw came when my mother suggested that my real family consisted of Tyler and Jake, who needed support, rather than my selfishness that prioritized personal success over family loyalty. She implied that my continued refusal to provide assistance meant I was no longer welcome in their home or considered part of their family unit. My response was calm, but definitive. I pointed out that their definition of family loyalty was entirely one-directional, expecting support while providing none in return. Their complete lack of interest in my achievements during college and early business development had taught me that their love was conditional upon meeting their specific expectations. The conversation ended when I told my mother that her ultimatums and manipulative tactics only reinforced my decision to maintain independence from people who valued me solely for what I could provide, rather than who I actually was. Her final threat about being cut off from family was meaningless given that I had already learned to succeed without their support or approval. 20 minutes later, the text message arrived that would complete the circle of our relationship. Don't bother coming home for Christmas, we have real family now. Tyler and Jake need support from people who care about family, not selfish daughters who abandon their relatives. Don't contact us again until you're ready to act like family should. I stared at the message for several long moments, and then I smiled. Not the bitter smile of vindication or the cruel smile of satisfaction, but the genuine smile of someone who had finally been freed from seeking validation from people who were incapable of providing it. The irony was perfect. They were telling me not to come home for Christmas while sitting in a house they were about to lose, with no heat, facing bankruptcy, supporting 2 adult sons who contributed nothing while rejecting the daughter who had built a company worth $200 million entirely through her own efforts. My response was simple. Understood. Best of luck with your real family. I hope Tyler and Jake can help with the foreclosure and utility bills. Merry Christmas. Within hours, the Forbes acquisition, news broke. Meridian Energy Corporation had agreed to acquire Thompson Renewable Solutions for $247 million in cash and stock, making me one of the youngest female entrepreneurs in American history to build and sell a company for over $200 million before age 25. The acquisition announcement generated national media coverage that reached my hometown community within hours. Friends, neighbors, and extended family members who knew about the Christmas text message began calling my parents to ask about their reaction to my extraordinary success. The timing was poetic justice at its finest. On the same day, they had declared Tyler and Jake their real family, while rejecting me for not providing financial support. I had achieved the kind of business success that most entrepreneurs dream about their entire careers. The acquisition provided not just financial security, but complete validation of every decision I had made about pursuing independent innovation rather than seeking family approval. The systematic effort and strategic planning that they had never understood or valued had generated results that exceeded anything achievable through traditional employment or athletic achievement. 6 months later, I received a card from my aunt, with news that my parents had lost the house to foreclosure, while Tyler and Jake had moved to separate apartments supported by government assistance programs. Tyler was working part-time retail while attending community college, finally developing practical skills at age 26. Jake had served 30 days in county jail, but seemed to be responding better to court-mandated counseling. My mother had asked my aunt to pass along that they missed having me in their lives and hoped we could rebuild our relationship now that things had settled down. The message included no acknowledgement of their strategic failures or apology for their treatment of me during our final conversations. I kept the card but didn't respond. Some relationships can't be repaired because they were never built on genuine foundation to begin with. Their love had always been conditional upon meeting their definitions of success and worthiness. Having learned to succeed without their support, I saw no reason to provide the validation they had never offered me. The best revenge truly is success, not because it hurts the people who doubted you, but because it proves you never needed their approval to become who you were meant to be. Thompson Renewable Solutions continues operating as a subsidiary of Meridian Energy, employing over 200 people while serving customers across North America and Europe. The technologies I developed continue advancing renewable energy adoption while generating the kind of meaningful impact that makes business success worthwhile. And every Christmas, I send a donation to MIT's scholarship fund for students who need to finance their education independently. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give is the opportunity for someone else to prove they don't need anyone else's permission to change the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.